Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. Krelevak counted the seconds by the shake in his own hands, which had never happened before. 40 feet of packed stone and support beams stood between him and open air, and on the other side of that wall was a woman who was supposed to already be dead. The charge had gone exactly as calculated. Both exits sealed, atmosphere bleeding out on a countdown he'd set himself. He should have felt nothing. Instead, his forearms wouldn't stop trembling, and it took him 3 tries to walk away from the rubble. 9 days earlier, none of this made any sense yet. The offer had come through a relay so old it barely registered as encrypted anymore. A contract, a name, a colony most star charts didn't bother listing. Jessie Raw, 26, maintenance technician, New Bristol. Her crime was clerical. She'd found something in a shipping manifest that Senator Vaughn would have preferred stayed lost. The fee attached to her name could have bought Krelevak a controlling share in a mining moon. He'd taken harder contracts for a fraction of that, against targets with augmented reflexes and private armies. This one had no security detail, no combat record. She fixed water filtration systems for a living. He should have finished it in an afternoon. New Bristol turned out to be a planet built entirely from the worst instincts of 2 worse worlds, swamp and dust, stitched together with no attempt at seams. The customs officer ate a sandwich through Krelevak's entire arrival and never once looked at his documents. Nobody here seemed to understand how fragile they were. He watched a man rewire a live junction box barehanded while discussing a ball game. He watched Jessie Raw herself hoist an atmospheric coil that should have needed a loader, singing something about airports, off-key and completely unbothered by the sparks raining past her unprotected face. He dropped on her from the catwalk with a blade already humming. She rolled clear a half-second before landing, still singing, and stood up to find him crouched in the smoking gouge his weapon had cut into the floor. She asked if he was lost, gave him directions to the personnel office, and walked off without breaking stride. The coffee didn't work either. A dose of thoraxian toxin strong enough to stop a horse went into her mug while she argued about torque specs with a coworker named Patterson. She finished the cup, then 2 more, still arguing. The cargo container he rigged to fall on her missed by inches when she glanced up at the last half-second and threw herself sideways with a yelp, then complained about whose safety budget would eat the cost of the cracked floor. He poisoned her environmental suit before a repair run outside. She came back 4 hours later, having also fixed 2 backup generators, cheerfully citing efficiency. Something about her body simply declined every method he'd ever trusted, which was how he'd ended up bringing down a tunnel on her, and 6 hours after that, he watched her walk into a bar caked in dust, complaining mainly about a missed lunch and a welding torch she'd been glad to recover from the wreckage. Her friends bought her drinks in celebration. Krelevak bought his own, in mourning for a career he no longer understood. By the 7th day, he was sitting outside the engineering depot, conducting a private inventory of every choice that had brought him to this planet, when she simply sat down beside him, uninvited, and told him he was clearly living in Jenkins's illegal storage container rental and needed rescuing from it. He denied it. She didn't believe him, mostly because she was right, and she walked him to a bar that smelled like fuel and fried food and called itself, with what he assumed was irony, the Rusty Reactor. That was where it happened, the closest thing his life had to a hinge point. 3 drinks in, her question caught him off guard entirely. "So what's your story, mystery man? Last interesting visitor we had was an accountant." He set down his glass. The local liquor had already begun dismantling every professional instinct he owned, one nerve ending at a time. "I'm an assassin," he said. "I was hired to kill you." She laughed so hard she nearly went off the stool. "That's the best pickup line I've heard all year." "I'm not joking. The coffee, the falling container, the tunnel." He watched her face change, not fear, something closer to disbelief cracking into genuine curiosity. "All of it was me." "The tunnel was you," her grin faltered, then came back sharper. "Ha, that explains the weird bracing." She studied him a long moment, glass halfway to her mouth. Okay, so you're for real. 743 kills, 12 systems, and you can't manage one maintenance tech. Correct, he said, and the word came out smaller than he intended. She threw her head back and laughed again, but something warmer sat under it now, something that didn't feel like mockery. That's incredible, you poor thing. She raised her glass. To your worst professional year. He drank to it. The room had already started to slide sideways. He woke 11 hours later on a couch that wasn't his, every plate of his exoskeleton registering a distinct and separate grievance. Sunlight did something violent to his skull. The smell of food, some kind of scramble, toast, fruit, arranged like she hadn't been sure what an 8-foot alien might eat, pulled him upright before his body had agreed to the plan. Jessie sat across from him, infuriatingly rested, hair tied back, radiating the calm of someone who had never once experienced a hangover in her life. Made you breakfast, she said, sliding the plate closer. Didn't know what Rixians eat, so you're getting whatever I was having. He stared at the food for a long time before he trusted his voice. I have ended lives that begged me not to, creatures with families, with reasons to live far better than a maintenance line on some forgotten colony. I am good at this. I have never once failed a contract. He looked up at her. And I cannot finish you. Jessie set down her toast, and for once she wasn't smiling. So which is it? She said. You still want to, or you've just been running the motions because that's the only shape you know how to be. The question landed harder than the hangover had. I don't know, he admitted, and hearing himself say it out loud felt like something coming unwelded. Then here's an idea, she leaned forward, toast forgotten. We fake my death. He blinked all 4 eyes in sequence. That is insane. Is it, though, more insane than a week of you trying to kill me and both of us ending up here? She was already building it out loud, an industrial accident, a pressure valve, a body no one would look too closely for. You get your proof. Vaughn gets his silence. I get to disappear somewhere with better coffee. Everybody wins except a senator, and he doesn't count. It could work. A big enough burn would erase anything forensic. Vaughn was the kind of man who paid for results and never checked them twice. Why help me? Krelevac asked. I tried to kill you 5 separate times. Yeah, but you also covered rounds 6 through 10 last night, so I'd call us square. She grinned again, the warmth back in it. Also, I've got a thing about people stuck in bad careers. My ex called it a savior complex. I called her opinion irrelevant. 3 days later, an explosion tore through the atmospheric processing plant. 1 casualty. Technician Jesse Raw, 26, no immediate family, remembered by coworkers as the loud one who fixed everything. Krelevac filed his completion report, collected payment enough to buy that mining moon he'd never wanted, and never took another contract again. Turns out a target who becomes a friend instead of a body has a way of ruining the whole profession for you. Jesse resurfaced 3 systems away under a different name and made him promise to visit. He did, often. She taught him poker. He taught her 17 ways to disable a man with whatever was lying around, which she found academically thrilling and morally dubious in equal measure. 6 months on, in another bar on another colony that didn't deserve the word civilization, she turned her glass slowly on the counter and said, Funny thing. You spent your whole life learning how to end people efficiently. Turns out we're way more dangerous just by being annoying and hard to kill. He clicked his mandibles, the sound he'd come to use instead of laughing. Explain. We make you care. No blade does that. She reached across the bar, took the little vial he still carried out of habit, the last dose of paralytic he'd never used on her, and dropped it, unceremoniously, into the tip jar for the bartender to find whenever he pleased. Neither of them mentioned it again. Somewhere in the black, a senator was still waiting for a problem that had already stopped existing, with no idea that the woman he'd wanted erased now had a professional killer keeping her seat warm at every bar in the sector.